Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are really glad you are here. Usually when we talk about holding a grudge, there's a natural expiration date built right into it.
Right. I mean, the anger just eventually burns out because the fuel runs out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's comforting, really. We like knowing that conflicts eventually have an end state, you
Yeah.
know. The finitude of human existence acts as a sort of natural boundary for our pettiness.
Yeah, even generational feuds eventually lose their bite as the original contest just fades into history. People forget why they were even mad in the first place.
But I want you to imagine stepping into a universe where the combatants have actually conquered death itself. You're looking at a landscape of rivalry that is just eternal.
Yeah, a feud completely stripped of any natural expiration date. It is allowed to marinate over literal geological epochs.
It is wild. So we are unpacking a stack of sources today that center around a story that flips the darkest universe in fiction completely on its head. We are talking about Robert Rath's novel, The Infinite and the Divine.
Such a fantastic piece of work. The sources really highlight how unique it is.
It really is. The mission of this deep dive today is to explore how a sprawling, cosmic tale of immortal space machines somehow transforms into this universally relatable comedy about a petty feud. We're breaking down the sources to pull out the key takeaways for you.
And to truly appreciate the scale of this, you have to understand the players involved. We are looking at a multi-millennia game of cat and mouse between two ancient beings.
Ancient beings whose squabbles literally end civilizations.
Right, their pranks actively reshape timelines. The collateral damage of their bickering alters the entire galactic map. It's not a human-centric narrative at all.
No, definitely not. But if these beings are entirely mechanical, which they are, we have to establish the mechanism that gets a biological species to this point in the first place. Looking at the lore, this entire dynamic hinges on the tragedy of what they call biotransference.
Yeah, the Necrons weren't just forged in a factory on an assembly line. Millions of years ago, they were this flesh and blood species called the Necron tier.
And that flesh and blood existence it was defined by absolute radiation-soaked misery.
Oh, absolutely. Their homeworld orbited a violent, irradiated star. It practically guaranteed these short, painful, tumor-ridden lives.
It's so grim. Their entire culture was essentially this massive death cult. They were completely obsessed with tombs and legacy simply because their actual lifespans were just so fleeting.
Exactly. Which makes them the absolute perfect marks for a cosmic con. And that is where the C10 enter the picture.
Right, the Cetan. So for those who might not be deep into this specific lore, the Cetan are star gods. They are beings of immense, almost incomprehensible physical power who literally feed on stellar energy.
Yeah, and the sources detail how the C10 came to the Necron tier with this ultimate Faustian bargain. They promised to cure their cursed biology.
They offered them the one thing they wanted most, immortality.
Right, the immortality they had obsessed over for their entire recorded history. The process they offered was biotransference. It was the systemic transfer of biological consciousness into bodies forged of living metal.
They called it necrodermis, right?
Yes, necrodermis, living metal.
So immortality, indestructible metal bodies, curing a species-wide cancer. I mean, if you look at the marketing brochure, it seems like a miracle.
Oh, for sure. On paper, it's exactly what they prayed for. But the C10 were running the ultimate bait and switch.
The fine print gets you every time.
It really does.
Ow.
The C10 didn't mention the thermodynamics of the process. They didn't just digitize minds. They actually consumed the metaphysical energy of the Necron tier.
Wow, so the process itself was just a feeding frenzy for the gods.
Exactly. The biotransference process literally devoured their souls. It left behind digital engrams, so perfect copies of their personalities, memories, and intellects, but it completely stripped away the vital spiritual essence that actually made them alive.
And it gets worse for the average citizen, doesn't it?
Oh, way worse. For the vast majority of the population, it stripped away their free will entirely. It hard-coded them with obedience protocols. They became mindless automatons.
I was trying to conceptualize what that actual loss feels like while reading through the sources. They are described as soulless, but that's such an abstract concept to wrap your head around.
It is really hard to put into human terms. What was your takeaway?
Well, it's like signing the ultimate horrific terms and conditions agreement. Think of it like a software update on your phone. You have a smartphone whose battery is constantly dying. That represents their radiation poisoning.
Right, you're constantly tethered to a charger, just miserable.
Exactly. So you get a pop-up offering a patch that promises to make the battery last forever. You click, I agree. The phone restarts, and boom, you have infinite power.
Sounds great so far.
Right. But then you open your camera roll, and every single photo of your family is just gone. The contacts are wiped. All your personalized settings, your background, everything is reverted to factory defaults.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Everything that made that piece of glass and metal yours is permanently deleted.
Mm.
You have a phone that will never die, but it has completely lost its purpose for existing.
What's fascinating here is that your analogy captures the existential dread of their condition perfectly. The text forces us to really confront the utility of eternal life if you remove the human experience from it.
Yeah, because what is immortality if you aren't really you anymore?
Exactly. If you strip away the soul, you remove the capacity for genuine organic growth. You remove empathy. You completely remove the warmth of connection.
So the Necrons are just left with this static consciousness trapped in a cage of living metal.
It is a living death. And this is the foundational bedrock of Wrath's story. If you are going to live for 65 million years and you lack a soul, how do you not simply succumb to the crushing weight of infinity and deactivate yourself?
You have to build an artificial operating system just to keep moving. You
Yeah.
desperately need a distraction.
You need a hobby, basically, an
Yeah.
all-consuming one.
Right. Which brings us to the two characters who have constructed arguably the most elaborate coping mechanisms in the entire galaxy. Let's look at Trazyn the Infinite first.
Trazyn is such a fantastic character.
He really is. He's an overlord, so he holds massive political and martial power within their hierarchy. But the title he actually cares about, the one he identifies with, is Archaeovis.
Yeah, Trazyn's entire psychological anchor is preservation. He operates a whole planet called Solemness as his personal gallery world.
But he doesn't just collect dusty old pots and swords, does he?
No, not at all. Trazyn doesn't merely collect inanimate artifacts. His obsession extends to preserving literal moments in time. He uses these hyperdimensional tesseract labyrinths and stasis fields to freeze things.
So he's freezing actual living things.
Oh, absolutely. Entire armies, historical figures, alien beasts. He freezes them exactly as they were at the precise moment of their capture. He creates these massive living dioramas.
It's so creepy when you really think about it. He's looking at a chaotic, dying galaxy and deciding his one purpose is to just put it all behind glass.
It is an obsessive need for control. He is terrifyingly meticulous.
And on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, we have his rival, Orican the Diviner. If Trazyn is obsessed with the past, Orican is all about the future, right?
Exactly. While Trazyn obsessively catalogs the physical past, Orican manipulates the ethereal future. Orican is a chronomancer and a master astromancer.
Which means he does math. Really, really intense math.
Through incredibly complex mathematical calculations and celestial observation, he doesn't just predict the future, he actively edits timelines to ensure his desired outcomes happen.
So if time is a river, Orican isn't swimming in it. He's standing on the bank trying to build a dam out of equations.
I love that, yes. And the river actively fights back against him. The mechanics of chronomancy in the lore are actually fascinating to look at.
Because it's not just a superpower he can use without consequences.
Not at all. It's not a simple push of a button. Manipulating time takes a massive physical toll on Orican's living metal body. Timelines naturally resist alteration.
Right, the butterfly effect.
Exactly. The butterfly effect requires him to constantly recalculate variables in real time, which heavily strains his digital consciousness. But he endures this immense pain because of his core philosophy.
Which is totally opposed to Trazyn's.
Completely. Unlike Trazyn, who wants to preserve the physical universe, Orican actively despises the physical universe. He loathes his metal body.
So what is his end goal with all this time manipulation?
His singular obsession is apotheosis. He wants to transcend the necrodermis entirely and become a being of pure, unfettered energy.
I have to challenge this setup a bit, though, based on what the sources said earlier. We just discussed how the biotransference process devoured their souls.
Right, leaving them as emotionless digital engrams.
Yeah, so if they are essentially soulless robots, how do they care so much? Hoarding physical objects to build an impossible museum or enduring immense pain to achieve spiritual evolution into pure energy, those actions require intense passion.
That is a really great observation.
Isn't passion fundamentally a human trait? Or at least a byproduct of having a soul? I mean, how can a digital copy of a mind be petty or arrogant?
The author synthesizes this paradox by exploring what we might call the relatability of the inhuman. You are questioning how the soulless feel.
Exactly. It seems like a contradiction.
Well, the answer the text provides is that they don't feel, at least not in the organic emotional sense that you and I do, but they possess incredible intellect, And with intellect comes ego.
Ah, so it's an ego thing.
Yes. Their deep-seated pride, their arrogance, and their desperate need for purpose aren't emotional responses. They are literally psychological survival mechanisms.
So they are basically architectural support beams holding up their sanity.
Exactly. Without those rigid obsessions, they would have to face the absolute void of their own existence.
Which would break them. Totally. If Trazen admits that history is just dust and nothing he collects actually matters, his mind collapses. If Orican abandons his quest for apotheosis, he has to accept that his metal cage is his eternal reality. Right, so their so-called passions are essentially just obsessive programming routines they run in the background to delay existential dread.
You nailed it. And what is so brilliant about this story is how this underlying cosmic dread manifests itself on the page.
Because it doesn't manifest as somber, silent depression, it manifests as a massive galaxy-spanning turf war.
Yes, if you have two beings with egos the size of a solar system who are desperately bored and terrified of their own existence, you really just need a tiny spark to ignite a war.
And the sources point to that spark being a very specific artifact, an item called the Astrarium Mysterios.
The Astrarium Mysterios. It is an ancient, highly complex puzzle box. According to their lore, it supposedly holds the secret to unlocking the hidden tomb of Nephrith.
And Nephrith was an ancient Necron leader.
Right, an ancient leader whose body was allegedly pure and completely untouched by the biological curses of their past. It's a huge deal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because naturally, since Trazen and Orican are fundamentally opposed in their philosophies, they view this object entirely differently.
Oh, completely. To Trazen, it's the ultimate museum centerpiece. He doesn't actually care about its metaphysical implications or what it unlocks.
He just wants it on a nice pedestal on Solemness with a little plaque under it.
Exactly. Whereas Orican views the Astrarium Mysterios as a massive mathematical variable. He believes the artifact contains the specific astral equations he needs to achieve his apotheosis.
So Trazen wants to look at it, and Orican wants to use it to ascend to godhood. I can see how that causes friction.
Definitely. Orican discovers Trazen has it, breaks into Solemness, and just steals it. And that kicks everything off.
What I really love about Wrath's execution here is that the text is entirely self-aware about this plot device. It practically hangs a neon sign over the Astrarium Mysterios, labeling it a MacGuffin.
Oh, for sure. It's the classic Maltese Falcon of the 41st millennium.
It really is. The glowing box of secrets is just a thinly veiled excuse to get these two massive personalities into a room together so they can fight.
The author uses the artifact to explore the true nature of rivalry itself. The text frequently characterizes them as two bickering old men.
Like a cosmic sitcom duo.
Exactly. Their feud is so ancient that the original slights and insults are almost entirely irrelevant now.
So the object itself doesn't even matter.
Not really. Consider their dynamic as a binary star system. You have two massive, incredibly dense egos locked in this inescapable orbit, slowly ripping the matter out of each other until they eventually go supernova.
That's a perfect way to put it. They don't even remember why they actually hate each other. They just know the hatred is structural to who they are.
Right, it gives them definition.
If you have defined your entire personality for millions of years as the overlord who defeats Orican, what happens if you actually win and Orican is just gone? You lose a massive chunk of your own identity.
The rivalry is entirely a symbiotic relationship. They rely on each other to feel alive in a soulless body.
So if the Astrarium Mysterios hadn't been stolen, they would have just found some other ridiculous reason to clash.
Without a doubt. The theft of this specific artifact merely shifts their dynamic from a simmering, passive-aggressive grudge into an active, escalating war that spans millennia.
In this middle section of the narrative, the millennia of war, is really where the book cements its reputation, isn't it?
Oh, it is universally praised as the funniest Warhammer 40,000 novel ever written for a reason.
We are talking about gods of the physical universe engaging in an escalating series of pranks. But these are pranks executed with the power to literally shatter continents.
The scale of their sabotage is just staggering. The sources detail conflicts ranging from tedious millennia-long legal battles to sudden, massive acts of catastrophic violence.
Wait, legal battles. Let's talk about the Council of Antiquities. They literally take each other to court.
They do. They actually file lawsuits against each other.
You have to imagine what a legal system looks like when the participants have infinite time. We're talking about filing motions, appeals, and countersuits that take actual centuries to resolve.
It is the ultimate form of petty bureaucracy. They weaponize the legal system against each other just to be annoying. It's a war of attrition where neither side can die of old age.
but the bureaucracy inevitably fails to satisfy them, leading to direct action. And we have to talk about the most illustrative example of their dynamic from the sources.
The gene stealer incident.
Yes, the gene sealer prank.
Mm.
So, Trazen decides to retaliate for previous slight. He's setting up an exhibit and utilizes one of his hyperdimensional tesseracts.
Which is basically a pocket dimension capable of holding anything, like a cosmic Pokeball.
Exactly. And inside this specific tesseract, he has trapped a gene stealer. Now, for anyone listening who might not be deep into 40K lore, you know that a gene stealer is a biological nightmare.
It is one of the most terrifying creatures in the setting.
Right. It's an apex vanguard organism. It's designed to infiltrate a planetary population, infect the locals with its genetic material, start a fanatical cult, and ultimately emit a psychic beacon.
And that beacon draws a Tyranid hive fleet to consume all biomass on the entire planet. Dropping a gene stealer anywhere is essentially a surgical extinction event.
It is planetary death.
Yeah.
And Trazen just throws this tesseract, releasing the gene stealer right into Oricon's vicinity, entirely as a prank.
Just to mess with him while he's working.
It's the cosmic equivalent of putting a venomous snake in your buddy's bed. But the sheer negligence of what happens next is what makes it so fascinating to read.
Because they completely lose track of it.
Right. They are so deeply obsessed with their personal duel, dodging and attacking each other, that they just lose track of the one-old-ending alien creature. It escapes into the wider human city on the planet Serenade.
And then nature takes its course.
Over the next few centuries, that single-dropped gene sealer does exactly what it's biologically programmed to do. It starts a massive cult that eventually threatens to violently overthrow the entire planet.
The tactical elegance of dropping a vanguard organism as a practical joke is completely overshadowed by the sheer callousness of the act.
It really is like swatting a fly in your buddy's living room, but you use a wrecking ball to do it, and you end up destroying the whole neighborhood.
The narrative plays this all out as a comedy of errors. It's almost a Tom and Jerry routine, but with literal planetary stakes. But the text is constantly forcing the reader to confront the dark implication of it all.
The human cost.
Yes, the human cost is staggering. You're laughing at the clever banter, but then you realize the punchline is a city burning to the ground.
It really highlights the absolute absurdity of their power. When Trazen throws that tesseract, he isn't considering the billions of human lives on Serenade.
Not even for a microsecond.
He isn't thinking about the generations of suffering, the mutated cultists, or the apocalyptic arrival of a Tyranid swarm. To him, it's just a funny way to distract Oricon.
Because, to Trazen and Oricon, humans are quite literally insects. The suffering of organic species doesn't even register on their moral compass.
Mainly because their moral compass was destroyed during biotransference millions of years ago.
Exactly. They are fighting over who has the shinier boot, completely and entirely ignoring the anthill they are actively crushing beneath it.
Wrath just masterfully juxtaposes this slapstick humor with the grim reality of a universe ruled by uncaring mechanical gods. It's a completely new kind of 40K novel.
It is. But just as you settle into this rhythm, accepting that the book is basically a dark buddy cop disaster movie where the cops are the actual disaster, Wrath pulls off an incredible structural pivot.
Here is where it gets really interesting. The narrative completely recontextualizes the thousands of years of bickering we just witnessed.
The rug is completely pulled out from under the reader and the characters.
The grand revelation in the final act is just devastating to their respective egos. They discover that they have not actually been the architects of their own feud this whole time.
Right. Every clue they found regarding the Asturian Mysterios, every bizarre coincidence that kept bringing them back to the planet Serenade over and over again, it was all orchestrated by a puppet master.
Yeah. They realize they've been dancing on the strings of a Cetan shard. Specifically, a shard of Mephederen, the Deceiver.
And to understand the weight of that, we have to remember who the Deceiver is. This is the very entity that architected the biotransference millions of years ago.
The guy who stole their souls.
Exactly. It is the literal architect of their soulless misery. And a fractured piece of this god, a shard, trapped deep beneath the surface of Serenade, has been manipulating them the entire time.
It was luring them there to free it from its prison. But the mechanics of how the Deceiver pulls this off are just incredible to me.
How so?
Well, how does a trapped, fractured god manipulate two of the most paranoid, hyper-intelligent beings in the galaxy for 10,000 years without them ever noticing a thing?
By playing their specific, rigid psychologies against them perfectly, The deceiver understood that Trajan's hoarding wasn't just a hobby, it was pathological.
So it planted clues disguised as rare artifacts.
Right, knowing Trajan absolutely couldn't resist investigating them. And it understood Oricon's desperate need for apotheosis, feeding him mathematical anomalies that Oricon's massive ego would demand he solve.
The deceiver weaponized their coping mechanisms. It needed two immensely powerful Necrons to converge on Serenade, unwittingly bringing the specific tools required to unlock its ancient prison.
And they fell for it completely. The psychological breakdown of that realization for them must be just catastrophic.
I can't even imagine. Trajan prides himself on controlling history, right? And Oricon prides himself on dictating the future.
Yeah, so to realize they were just pawns, that they had absolutely zero agency in their own lives, is a complete and utter shattering of their worldviews.
Which forces them into a very uncomfortable position. It's the classic enemy mind trope.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. The hatred they have for each other is vast, we know that. But the hatred they hold for the Cetan, the entities that literally stole their souls, is foundational. It is the core trauma of their entire species.
Faced with the deceiver, their petty feud is instantly dwarfed by an existential threat. They have to work together.
Which leads to a climax that totally subverts the standard grimdark formula we usually see. Usually in this setting, when factions clash, it's just a massive meat grinder until one side is totally annihilated.
Right. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. That's the tagline.
But here, Roth offers a third way. He forces a different outcome. They can't just shoot this thing until it dies. They have to actually synthesize their ability.
And the tactical synergy of the final battle is brilliantly executed on the page. You have Trajan, the master of the physical realm, utilizing his hyperdimensional storage.
He empties the museum.
He literally throws tesseracts like grenades, summoning entire frozen armies, terrifying beasts, and ancient heroes directly onto the battlefield to screen the deceiver's attacks.
Meanwhile, Oricon is doing the heavy lifting in the temporal realm, because the mechanics of fighting a literal god are impossible in real time.
Right. The god is just too fast and too powerful. So Oricon is using his chronosense to calculate the deceiver's strikes milliseconds before they even happen.
He is rewinding time in these tiny microbursts.
Exactly. Adjusting the timeline just enough to allow Trajan to dodge attacks that would otherwise instantly vaporize his necrodermis.
It is a masterful depiction of two opposing philosophies, the preservation of the past and the manipulation of the future, locking together perfectly to defeat the entity that ruined them both.
And it culminates in a moment of supreme, absolutely earned arrogance.
Oh, I love this part. They are staring down the architect of their eternal suffering. They combine their forces, and they deliver arguably one of the greatest lines in the lore.
Lucky for us, we kill gods.
Lucky for us, we kill God. It gives me chills. It's such a powerful reclamation of their agency. They aren't just squabbling curators anymore. They are the remnants of an empire that fought a literal war against heaven and won.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the literary brilliance of Rath's work isn't just in the climax, it's really in the denouement.
Right, the aftermath. Because the crucial question is whether this profound moment of unity is shared trauma actually changes their dynamic going forward.
You would naturally assume it does, wouldn't you?
Of course. They face their ultimate demon together. You'd think they'd form a lasting alliance, or at the very least, a respectful truce. Grab a beer if they drank, and agree to stay out of each other's way.
Well, the text aggressively rejects that assumption. The novel ends on a profoundly cyclical note.
It really does. After the God Shard is defeated and re-imprisoned, after they have literally saved each other's existence from total annihilation, the narrative closes with them slipping right back into their old habits.
Almost instantly. Another prank is pulled, another artifact is stolen.
They just hit the reset button. The book heavily implies that their feud will simply continue for another 65 million years.
So, analyzing the entirety of the sources, how do we evaluate a narrative that intentionally ends exactly where it began?
So what does this all mean for the reader? Is it a waste of time?
Not at all. The literary analysis points to this cyclical nature as both the book's greatest thematic strength and its only real structural hurdle.
Let's talk about the hurdle first.
Sure, from a pacing standpoint, because the plot intentionally meanders through millennia of sort of disconnected skirmishes and pranks, a reader expecting a tight, propulsive military thriller might find the middle sections a bit slow.
Because it operates more as a character study masquerading as a space opera.
Exactly. If you aren't invested in their specific banter, the pacing can feel a bit meandering.
But the strengths completely overwhelm that hurdle. in my opinion. Robert Rath's prose manages an incredibly difficult high-wire act here.
Writing a genuine comedy within a setting famously defined by misery is incredibly risky.
It is. But the humor never feels shoehorned in. It arises completely organically from the sheer absurdity of their situation. The complex, fascinating dynamic between the characters is just top-notch.
And by pulling the perspective entirely away from humanity, Wrath provides this humbling, terrifying view of the cosmos.
Seeing the galaxy through the eyes of immortal metallic beings who view the rise and fall of human empires as, like, brief, annoying interruptions to their museum curation, it is a masterful shift in tone.
It really is a refreshing perspective to see the universe through the eyes of its oldest inhabitants.
So as we wrap up and synthesize all these sources for you listening today, the ultimate takeaway of the infinite and the divine is strangely profound.
It really sneaks up on you.
It uses immortal space machines to teach us about the absurdity of holding grudges. It perfectly illustrates how, from a cosmic distance, our most bitter arguments look utterly ridiculous.
Like bickering over a puzzle box.
Exactly. Yet, simultaneously, it argues that our passions, even the intensely petty ones, even the ridiculous squabbles over property or pride, are sometimes the very anchors that keep us moving forward.
They give us a reason to wake up the next day.
Right. They are the mechanisms that make us feel alive, even when the universe around us feels completely hollow and uncaring.
Which leaves us with a lingering philosophical puzzle that builds perfectly on the text. Something for you to ponder on your own.
I love a good thought experiment. What is it?
Well, imagine if you were truly stripped of everything. If you lost your soul, your free will, and the very mortality that gives biological life its urgency, how would you maintain your consciousness?
That is a terrifying thought.
Could it be that cultivating an eternal, incredibly petty rivalry is actually the most profound act of rebellion available to you?
Wow. Is having a sitcom arch-nemesis the only viable way to prove to a cold, uncaring universe that you still actually have an identity after 65 million years?
It's the only way to anchor your sanity. I feud, therefore I am.
I feud, therefore I am. I love that. It certainly makes you look at the people you argue with a little differently, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really appreciate you spending your time with us, exploring these amazing sources.
It was a pleasure unpacking this with you all.
Take care, everyone. We will see you on the next deep dive.